And the former chairman of the Hong Kong Securities and Futures Commission, Andrew Sheng, suggested that emerging market economies strengthen their collaboration and combat speculative capital inflows by implementing a regional Tobin Tax. The Thai news agency reporter Akanit Wichintaran has more.
While emerging market economies have various options in responding to speculative capital inflows, Mr. Sheng stated that there are no good solutions. Allowing the host currency to appreciate would exacerbate the problem of hot money inflows. The host currency appreciation would make investments in the emerging market economies more attractive, which in turn would induce even more capital inflows. Moreover, if the local currency appreciation overshoots its intrinsic value, the export sector would be hurt and the economy would risk inflation and an economic bubble. Meanwhile, other mechanisms, including capital controls and prudential measures, all have their limits. Mr. Sheng proposed that emerging market economies curb capital inflows by implementing a Tobin tax, defined as a tax on all spot conversions from one currency to another. This type of tax, also known as the turnover tax, would send an alarming signal to global investors not to be overly speculative. If capital flows were to persist, the local governments can progressively increase the Tobin tax, which would create friction to capital flows and stop excessive volatility. Moreover, a Tobin tax would provide the local governments with some tax revenue to pay for the negative externalities of hot money inflows.
I firmly believe that turnover tax is the right way to go to solve some of the global financial architecture issues. Because if we don't have that, I believe that we don't have a way of funding what I call global public goods.
Mr. Sheng stated further that if the emerging market economies were to fully tackle the global problem of capital flows, a Tobin tax must be implemented regionally. If Tobin tax were to be implemented nationally, foreign capitals would simply flow from one emerging market economy to another, and from a global perspective, speculative capitals would continue to flow toward the emerging market economies. Hence, in an effort to solve the global problem, Mr. Sheng urged ASEAN countries to strengthen their collaboration by engaging in dialogues and by studying the technical process of implementation before designing a payment system that would allow Tobin tax to be collected in practice.
If the region is able to cooperate to impose the Tobin tax, then the rest of the world will sit up and listen. Otherwise, they say, well, that's a theory, and we'll carry on doing what we're carrying on to do.
In the long run, ASEAN countries should better coordinate their views on regulation and should push toward a common voice on the global platform. Perhaps acknowledging that Tobin tax is not just a theory would be a start. After all, do we need to wait for hot money inflows to create a crisis just to prove a point? Akanit Wichintaran, Thai News Agency for ASEAN TV.